6. And last week we read of the death of Gideon, and who was a judge, and then we read about his having 70 children. He retired early, okay, and had many wives, and had 70 children.
I can only muster up 2.
Yeah, so he worked, I'm sure his wives were the ones that worked hard.
How do you have time for anything else?
And one of them was called Avimelech. Okay, and we read that that's kind of like an irony that my father is a king. Okay, if we remember, the people of Israel of the city of Shechem, which was like the main city in Israel back then, they come to him and they say, "Be our king," and he says, "No, no, no, only God is king." But then he behaves like kings. He has many children and many wives and many children, and he accumulates a lot of wealth and gold. So he's like acting like king, and by calling his son, "My father is a king," so that's kind of like saying like I'm the king, and then today we're going to be reading about the story of his son Avimelech. My father's a king. Well, the important part is to know she was born to him by a concubine. So it's not enough he had all these wives, he also had many concubines along the road. That's how you get to have 70 children. Okay, if that's not, this is not what this class is about, but that should be clear to all of you. So chapter 9 today, we read about, and it's big enough. Should I make it larger?
Yeah.
No? Avimelech, son of Yerubal, went to his mother's brothers in Shechem and spoke to them and to the whole clan of his mother's family. He said, "Put this question to all the citizens of Shechem. Which is better for you, to be ruled by all 70 sons of Yerubal, or to be ruled by one? And remember, I am your own flesh and blood." So here's a smart guy. He's born to a concubine, which means he's not like the first of heirs. His status is not that great. His parents are not married. His mother is just a concubine, but he's called my father's king. So he's like, "Oh, my father called me that, so he must want me to be king after him." So he goes to his own people, his clan. His clan is his mother's family, okay? So he goes to them and he tells them, "Who do you want to rule over you? All 70 sons of Avimelech, which are born to the legal wives, which are like, or do you want our tribe of our mother that you all know and cherish or whatever to rule?" So he's like, it's like a rhetorical question, because obviously they will choose Avimelech, okay, instead of having 70 people ruling them. Who wants 70 people ruling them? It's impossible to do that. This is also a hint. If you remember, I keep telling you that the book of Judges is all about setting the stage for the election of kings. First King Saul, and then King David. And the book of Judges wants to show us that the method of ruling by judges doesn't work. You can't have a leader here and a leader there. You need like a centralized leadership. One leader, which is a king back then. They didn't know, the other systems of governance that we know about today. Okay, so this is the best way to do it, and let's have a king. So it's also setting the background for why we need one king. But this time is not going to work. This is going to be a bad tryout of having kingdom. So His mother's brothers said all this in his behalf to all the citizens of Shechem, and they were won over to Avimelech, for they thought he is our kinsman. Oh, so let's elect Avimelech because he's our guy. They gave him 70 shekels from the temple of Baal Berit, which is an idol worshiper temple. They worshipped idols there. And with this, Avimelech hired some worthless and reckless men, and they followed him. So if you want to be king, it's not enough that you say, I'm going to be king. You need to be followed by an entourage, is the right name? Yeah. So you hired some, bums on the street who don't have much to do. You paid them a little bit, okay, you buy them a soda and some popcorn, and you give them some weapons, which they might have already. And now we walk around the streets of Shechem, and we're going to be declaring Avimelech is our king. We have a new king. Long live the king.
How did they get to the point where they were worshiping Baal again?
Well, this is kind of like, that's a good question. So this is again the start of the decline, okay, because every time there was like quiet for 40 years, so then people got used to that, and they said, oh, let's go back to our old habits of worshiping the Baal. And that was a moneymaker. As you can see, they have this 70 shekels, okay, of probably gold or of silver that they have, and it's probably more profitable to work the Baal in the temple with all that gold and silver coming in than to worship God.
It seems to me also it sort of lays out the chaotic times that they were leading up to Saul and how they got there. Because this was really not very good.
So then Abimelech, went to his father's house in Ophrah and killed his brothers, the sons of Yerubbaal, 70 in succession on one stone. Okay, horrific scene described here in just very few words, very dry, but can you imagine like this horrific scene? Only Jotham, the youngest son of Yerubbaal, survived, the youngest son of Gideon survived because he went into hiding. Okay, Jotham is an interesting word with the letters of Yud, Vav, Taf, Mem. Yo is from like God, from like the name of God, Adonai, Yud, Vav. And Tam is innocent. Okay, so God's innocent person is Jotham, and he's the only one that escapes into hiding. All the citizens of Shechem and all Bet Milo convened, and they proclaimed Avimelech king at the terebinth of the pillar of Shechem. And now, after this happens, they don't really have much of a choice. Everyone else is killed. They have to make him king. Very violent person. You don't want to mess around with him and his reckless kingsmen. So when Jotham,
What's a terebinth?
terebinth is
I think it's like a stone thing, isn't it?
yeah.
Speaking plaza.
Let me just check this in Hebrew. No, it's a tree. It's a very famous Israeli tree.
Absolutely.
Okay,
What's the name?
Oh,
Elah. Tachat Etz Ha'elah.
For many reasons.
And they used to look at these trees as sacred.
Yeah, many.
Okay, we have many verses in the Bible where the terebinth is considered like a sacred tree, and idolatry was practiced there. Okay. One very famous case is that when Jacob comes from Lavan with his wives, and there was like a lot of idol worshiper there, he buries all the idol worshiping statues that he got under the terebinth over there. So when Jotham was informed, he went and stood on top of Mount Gerizim and called out to them in a loud voice. Citizens of Shechem, he cried, listen to me, that God may listen to you. And this is one of the most beautiful passages, I believe, in the Bible.
He must have a very loud voice.
He has a very loud voice, and he's standing. If when we do our Israel trip, we're going to go there. We're going to go to Mount Gerizim. Okay, we're going to visit the Samaritans, which is a fascinating group of people. And we're going to see that it overlooks Shechem. It's a very tall mountain. You need to really look down and you see all of Shechem is in front of you. So he probably raise his voice, but not too much. It's in a valley. So perfect acoustics. Okay. And he tells them this beautiful, beautiful parable, which I think is one of the most fascinating passages in the Bible, which we will focus on today. This will be our focus today, this parable. Once the trees went to anoint a king over themselves. Okay, the king need a tree. Who's going to rule us, the trees? They said to the olive tree, reign over us.
Rain.
Reign over us. But the olive tree replied, have I, through whom God and humans are honored, stopped yielding my rich oil that I should go and wave above the trees? So he's declining. So the trees said to the fig tree, you come and reign over us. But the fig tree replied, have I stopped yielding my sweetness, my delicious fruit, that I should go and wave above the trees? So he declines. So the trees said to the vine, you come and reign over us. But the vine replied, have I stopped yielding my new wine, which gladdens God and humans, that I should go and wave above the trees? And all the trees, so he declines, and then all the trees said to the thorn bush, you come and reign over us. The thorn bush said to the trees, if you are acting honorably in anointing me king over you, come and take shelter in my shade. But if not, may fire issue from the thorn bush, that may fire issue from the thorn bush and consume the cedars of Lebanon, which are very strong trees, which are very hard to consume.
Dude, that's the hospital for that, Cedar of Lebanon.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay, there you go. So, and he kind of like explains the parable, but it's not enough here. But in verse 16, I just want to read this. Now then, if you acted honorably and loyally in making Avimelech king, if you have done right by Jerubbaal, my father Gideon, and his house, and if you requited him according to his deserts, considering that my father fought for you and saved you from the Midianites at the risk of his life, and now you have turned on my father's household, killed his sons 70 in succession on one stone, and set up Avimelech, the son of his handmaid, as king over the citizens of Shechem, just because he is your kinsman. If, I say, you have this day acted honorably and loyally, toward Yerubal, Gideon, my father and his house. Have joy in Avimelech, and may he likewise have joy in you. But if not, may fire issue from Avimelech and consume the citizens of Shechem and Beth Milo, and may fire issue from the citizens of Shechem and Beth Milo and consume Avimelech. With that, Jotham fled. He ran to Be'er and stayed there because of his brother Avimelech. Okay, so we're going to stop here and work on this parable today. First of all, we understand why he fled, because after giving this speech, this is not a speech in favor of his brother. Okay, this is a rebellion. Okay, anyone ever heard this parable before?
No,
No.
I had to memorize it in school in Israel.
Oh.
I don't remember it anymore, but I remember memorizing it. And I, it impacted me a lot. So let's look at some of the beautiful commentary on this parable and understand it. So what preceded the parable of Jotham, Gideon's son, was truly a Shakespearean tragedy. The father of the family died at a ripe old age, after 40 years of peaceful and tranquil rule, and the succession struggle that developed would not have shamed Richard III or King Lear.
Yeah.
In fact, okay, the people's desire to anoint a king over themselves set in motion the chain of bloody events. Gideon stubbornly refused kingship and even declared emphatically that his son would not rule over them. Only the Lord alone shall rule over you. After his death, his son Avimelech persuaded his maternal relatives in the city of Shechem, using the base argument that his sole rule is preferable to rule by many. They recognize him as the legitimate heir, and he hires worthless and reckless men. Okay, that's alert number one. And slaughters his 70 brothers upon one stone. It's alert number two. Right, big red flag. Now that there are no heirs to Gideon, all the lords of Shechem and Bet Milo crown Avimelech by the oak tree, and a rain of blood begins. A rain of blood begins. Okay, and the rain of blood is like, that's where I stop, because we're going to see that either later today or next week of this bloody wars that start between the people of Shechem and Avimelech and other cities. The whole country is now in chaos because of these very,
can we assume
chaotic events.
that Abimelech's mother was a Baal worshiper?
Perhaps, yeah,
Well, they got the money from. the
From
temple,
Baal, exactly.
yeah,
So,
probably. But another son survived the horror. Jotham stands on Mount Gerizim and raises his voice. It is a pure and clear voice rising above the murky political swamp. Words of critique, disguised as a parable, directed at a populace that bows before power, and at the same time against those who refuse to take upon themselves true governing responsibility. In Jotham's parable, the trees of the forest approach the olive, the fig, and the vine, asking them to rule over them. Each of these distinguished candidates refuses to give up a life of comfort and ease. Why should the olive abandon its richness? The fig has no intention of seizing its sweetness, and the vine clings to its wine, which gladdens God and men in that order. Each already provides benefit, and in their view, they are already productive public servants within the social fabric. Okay, so this is Navasema, who passed away I think 3 years ago, 4 years ago, was a brilliant writer, and she describes here so beautifully, that what happens if like you leave a political void, okay, and you let people who are not good enter. If you let someone like Avimelech come into power, okay, if you're someone who's capable, if you're like an olive tree or a fig tree or the wine tree, you produce something for the society, you do good for the society. If you stand and say, well, I've done my share, no, you have to always strive to do more and better. And if you are a leader and you're capable to go and lead, you cannot reject that. You can't say, oh, I'm already happy with what I'm doing. You're obligated to go and lead the people where they are. Very, very strong, very powerful message from the way she's interpreting it. Okay. Wait, she's not done. Thus, tree after tree refuses to sway among the trees. This is not out of excessive humility, but from a failure to take responsibility for a charged political situation at a critical moment. What might be called a kind of willful small mindedness. The phrase to sway among the trees is especially fascinating. You remember, each of the trees rejected kingdom by saying, I'm producing enough for the society. Why should I go to sway among the trees? What does it mean to sway among the trees? She asks. Does it mean to steer the wind, specifically in a positive sense? To move the treetops and breathe spirit into matter? Perhaps this is Jotham's way of defining the ruler's task. To inspire the spirit of freedom and the spirit of thought, movement in the language of the parable, in contrast to trees fixed in their roots, conservative and dispirited, fearful of any shaking or upheaval. So the olive, fig, and wine trees, okay, they're not just producing to the society, they're very happy and comfortable where they are. Like, leave me alone. I don't want any change. I don't want any upheaval. I'll watch from the side what unfolds. But you can't do that. It doesn't happen like that in a society. Jotham's call in favor of democracy, well, now she's taking a more liberal approach, okay? But that's her commentary here. And against tyranny remains valid. Tyranny remains valid day after day, even in our own places. The vegetation of the land of Israel is reflected through the parable. The landscapes, their yield and blossoming, like an Arab orchard in which the important fruit trees of the land grow together, upon which the economy of its inhabitants depends. Yet all of this is under threat of destruction. For the atad is the thorn tree, alone sets its sights on kingship. This invasive wild plant, indiscriminate about the soil in which it grows, which produces no fruit and gives no shade, sets a condition for the masses. They must take shelter in its shade, or else fire will come forth from it and devour the cedars of Lebanon. The demand of this shadeless one for absolute submission foretells the danger to come, for by its very nature, this frail plant is a broken reed. Yet the masses tend always to follow those who provide easy, immediate solutions and a black and white picture of reality, and they crown the one who will ultimately lead to their downfall. Because if you crown a thorn bush, that you'll be ruled by a thorn bush and you'll be hurt by it as well.
It's like Hezbollah in Lebanon.
Yeah, oh, nice, right, with the cedars of Lebanon, it fits well.
So what happened?
It's a little bit more.
Okay.
Avimelech, can you see?
Mhm.
Avimelech the Atad, the thorn bush, okay, indeed ascends the throne. while Jotham, the innocent, is forced to flee for his life and finds refuge in a place called Be'erah. Some identify it with one of Gideonite's cities from the book of Joshua. Others think it is El Bira near Bet Shean. That's in the valley of Jordan, in the Jordan Valley up north. In any case, the word Be'er, well, is noted. Did the last survivor hide all his days deep in the darkness of a pit, forever fearing that the hand of his murderous brother Avimelech would reach him? Of this, the Bible tells us nothing. No shelter did Avimelech provide for the people who chose him. Quite the opposite. That's what we are going to read next time. During his reign, which lasted only 3 years, he wages a series of wars and even brutally destroys Shechem, the people that supported him, sowing it with salt. The curse of fire that Jotham foretold consumes him as well at the end of the chapter, as he besieges a city called Tebez. A woman crushes his skull with a millstone. Perhaps the beginning of the troubles lies in the change of Gideon's name to Yerubal, we read that last week, which means fighting for God, although it was done with good intention to redefine the righteous judge as one who contends with idols, one who carries strife in his name, will ultimately see the contagion of conflict and zealotry ignite his own household. Okay? So that's a beautiful way of looking at things. And there are 3 different ways, at least that I found, of understanding what is this thorn bush. One is being the European buckthorn, in Latin, Rhamnus cathartica. Is that correct, George? So my Latin's good? Right? Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
I'll be.
And that's a shrub, small tree native to Europe, often used historically for hedges. In some places, like parts of the US, it's considered invasive. Okay, here, let me just enlarge the photo, and you can see the thorns on it, right? Spiny rush, a coastal shrub-like plant, a thorny shrub found near Mediterranean coasts. Beautiful plant, but you don't want to be under its shade. Look at the thorns. Look how
Thorns are
horrible. But look at the beautiful flowers. You go smell them and you punch your eyes.
Yeah.
Well, it's like roses, they're beautiful, but the thorns are terrible.
Yeah, they're not as strong as this. They're breakable. And this is nice. I think this is in Petach Tikva, in Rehovot, the Renee Smolansky Garden in Rehovot. The garden is dedicated to plants of the Bible and plants of the land of Israel. And one of them, and this has the parable of Jotham. So it has the fig and all the other trees. The olive tree are around here. So to go even deeper into the parable, because I told you I really like it, I want to look at it from an agricultural point of view and understand it. So the vine, the fig, and the olive, fruit trees of great importance, refuse the request to seek a new place and a different role. But the atad, the thorn tree, it is another story. What is this plant? It is clear that it is a plant whose fruits are not good for eating. Several sources also support the idea that it's a thorny plant. In the Tosefta, it is mentioned atad and thorns, referring to the thorny bush and the atad, a pair of thorns that the pillar of cloud cleared from the path of the Israelites. This combination also appears in Psalms: before your pots can feel the thorns, the atad, the thorn bush, etc. In other sources as well, the atad appears as a symbol of thorns. The atad was used as a thorny hedge to protect orchards of fruit trees. In many places, it was later replaced by the prickly pear cactus.
Pear,
Hmm?
prickly pear.
Prickly pear cactus. Not only that, the branches of the atad were cut and used to surround threshing floors, the place where grain was gathered for threshing. This is also how the expression goren atad has been understood. The atad in the parable is European box thorn, a member of the nightshade family, a wild thorny, a stubborn shrub. In the spring, the atad produces light green leaves, along with small flowers shaped like little bells in a pale purple color. But already at the beginning of the summer, its true nature is revealed, a thorny shrub that catches fire easily. So this is so beautiful. The Bible is so connected to the agriculture of the land. When they crowned him, it might have been springtime. You could see the thorns, you could see it could be damaged, but beautiful flowers. So let's look at the flowers and not look at the thorns. But by the summer, the flowers are gone, and the true nature of this vicious tree is revealed to everyone. Yotham's choice of the atad was clear and well known to the people of Shechem, who were farmers. The foliage and blossoms are charming, but very quickly the fresh green or colorful purple disappear, replaced by branches with dark bark and sharp thorns. Some researchers have identified the atad in the parable with the jujube tree, Ziziphus spina Christi, and indeed there are some matching features. However, the jujube remains green all year and is not entirely a fruitless tree. Its fruit is quite tasty, as anyone familiar with the flavor of the dome fruit I shook from a jujube can attest.
Harry, you remember getting jujubes?
Was that?
You remember getting jujubes? They were like
Yes.
gummy bears.
Yes,
Mm.
yes.
So this was
What did
written
they
by
do, like?
Billy Savir, who knows much about geography and agriculture. And another beautiful passage is by Tzvi Livni, who's a former member of Knesset from the Zionist Union and a former minister of foreign affairs. And interesting enough, she was almost prime minister. Yeah. She was offered to be prime minister because she got 29 mandates in the Knesset, and Benjamin Netanyahu got 28. So she was like first in line to set up so she went to the ultra-Orthodox party, and they said, yeah, if you let me do this and this and this, and you give us all these budget, and you don't draft our people to the army, and you cancel all the liberal conversions and everything, okay, then we'll make you prime minister. So she, some say smart, some say stupid, declined. She said, nope, no deal. And they went to Netanyahu, who agreed to all of that, and the rest is history. So she wrote this.
That's impressive.
Yeah, I don't know if she wrote this following this, but she wrote, for years I studied Jotham's parable and the lesson the people are meant to learn from it. This time I approached it dafka from the perspective of the trees. This parable does not merely describe the problematic process by which a people chooses a thorny atad, a prickly, barren plant that cannot rival those better than it in the political arena. Nor does it only describe the disastrous outcome of such a choice. Fire shall come out from the atad and devour the cedars of Lebanon. Rather, it carefully and at length details the refusal of the other trees to sway over the trees. Each of the other trees, seemingly worthy candidates for leadership, the olive, the fig, and the wine, find personal fulfillment in their contribution to society. The very benefit that others derive from their produce serves for them, and perhaps even in the eyes of the biblical text, as sufficient justification for their existence in the world. These leaders do not need the official title offered to them so effortlessly. They likely do not even need the sense of power, and perhaps they shrink from the responsibility that comes with it. Their position is that the lights they provide to the public are preferable in their eyes to the pleasures of rule. This position carries significant moral weight. Okay, so they're basically saying, look, we are olive trees. We know how to produce good olive oil to the people. Let us continue doing that. We are wine. We make people happy. Okay, let's continue doing that. Let's not shake anything. Let's, but they lack a very big understanding, okay, which is leadership requires you to get out of your comfort zone and move into a place where you can make change, where you're most needed. Okay, and it doesn't necessarily have to be in your familiar area. Okay, you could be in a very familiar area and like what you're doing, but no, you're called somewhere else. You need to be somewhere else.
Do you think it's possible that she's using that as a justification for passing the torch to Netanyahu?
Maybe,
The opposite.
maybe, yeah, she's kind of like justifying,
Yeah,
her
it
moral
sounds-
code.
it sounds
And she had time to write this, after.
Yeah, but the cost of actually doing that is very significant. Giving in to these other very, very close-minded requirements is detrimental to the general public.
Then
Yeah.
who had to do it? He had
Yeah,
to do it.
so she criticizes whoever did that. That's in my mind. And I don't want to get into the politics. She could have also assumed leadership and try to work it out somewhere, with her own leadership. Who knows? Like, it's like,
But she also might have said to herself, I don't have the capabilities and I should leave it to somebody else because of maybe she didn't have the confidence or the fire within her to fight.
People do what they want.
yeah, if you're a
What they want.
political leader, you have to maneuver. You have to sometimes, bend the rules, twist things,
Yeah,
but you gotta be there.
But you
It
could,
is easy to lose your moral code,
Mhm.
and maybe she was afraid of that. I don't know exactly, the point is not to discuss her, it's like to understand really how this works, but this is why this parable is so powerful. It's like what would we do if we were in the place of of the figs, if we were like people contributing to the society already, or whatever we're doing, and we're asked to move out of our comfort zone. It's a very big dilemma. This is not a simple dilemma. Okay, but in politics, you don't know. If you refuse, later on, that could create like a war that created with Avimelech and everything else.
What happened to the elders from all the other tribes while this was going on?
Well, they were all fearful of Avimelech. No one wanted to mess around with him. But he then goes into wars. We'll see that later on, the wars that he goes into.
I'm
Let's just finish
surprised
what
that
she
they,
writes.
Yeah.
What?
just surprised a little bit that there was no other interference from the other tribes in his efforts.
Yeah, it's true, but Ephraim, where Shechem is a very big tribe, and I think people didn't want to mess around with them. So she continues and says, yet Yotham's parable contains an inevitable tragedy that emerges from this very stance. In my view, the parable is essentially asking whether the truly good, those who generate benefit wherever they turn, can allow themselves to pave the way for the rule of the thorny and the forceful, those who neither can nor know how to create shared goods. Does their ability to produce collective good not obligate them to do more than that, to sway over the trees, to undertake the demanding effort that carries both great responsibility and great frustration? Yotham's parable suggests that the fact that the trees remained within their comfort zone and were unwilling to step forward is precisely what made the Atad relevant. As for the new king, there are no surprises. An Atad, the thorn tree, behaves like an Atad. Rather than doing good and justifying his selection, he destroys his political rivals those who might replace him. And Jotham, the speaker of truth, is forced to flee. The world continues in its accustomed way. So basically, she said there's no vacuum anywhere. So the people are going to choose a leader. They're not going to not choose a leader. So if you're going to leave leadership to anyone out there, it's going to be a thorn bush. And then you're going to be consumed by the thorn bush. Okay? And to summarize this, I even found this cute 1.5 minute video.
When Jotham heard of Abimelech's crowning, he climbed Mount Gerizim and called out to the people of Shechem with a powerful parable. The trees once went out to anoint a king over themselves. They said to the olive tree, "Be our king." But the olive tree replied, "Should I give up my oil that honors both God?"
Sorry.
When Jotham heard of a powerful parable, the trees once went out to anoint a king over themselves. They said to the olive tree, "Be our king." But the olive tree replied, "Should I give up my oil that honors both God and man to sway over the trees?" So they asked the fig tree, "Come and be our king." But it answered, "Should I abandon my sweetness and good fruit?" Then they said to the vine, "You be our king." But the vine replied, "Should I stop producing wine that cheers God and man?" Finally, all the trees said to the bramble, "Come and reign over us." And the bramble eagerly accepted their offer. The bramble declared, "If you truly want me as king, come and take refuge in my shade. If not, let fire come out and consume even the cedars of Lebanon." Now therefore, if you have acted in truth and integrity in making Abimelech king, then rejoice in him, and let him rejoice in you. But if not, let fire come out from Abimelech and devour you, and let fire come out from you and devour Abimelech.
Which is what's going to happen in the next